What's going on, guys? The March Digital SAT is finally almost here, and I know all of you are preparing and studying for that exam. So in this video, I'm going to give you guys my top predictions for what will be on the Digital SAT, what to expect in March, what kind of questions, what challenges. Will the test be easy or hard? I'm going to go over all that stuff in this video. At the end of the video, I'm going to give you guys some great last-minute study tips, so make sure to stick around for that as well. I'm NickTheTutor, and I've helped over 50,000 students prepare for the Digital SAT and other tests. And in today's video, I'm going to be going over my final predictions for the March Digital SAT, so let's get right into it. All right, guys, prediction number one. A lot of students are saying they think this test is going to be easy. My prediction is that this is not going to be an easy test, and there's a few reasons for that. Number one, the test just isn't any easier than the prior SAT. A lot of that stems from, if you've heard from friends or students saying, oh, the new digital test is easier, that stems from students getting the easier Module 2 on the adaptive testing nature of the Digital SAT. For the students that are moving on to the harder Module 2, this test may have a higher concentration of harder questions than any SAT that's ever existed, so this will not be an easy test. That said, for those of you that do move on to the easier Module 2, it will be a more pleasurable experience. Instead of having to do all those challenging questions at the end, you're going to have an easier module, so you might feel like the test is a little less painful. But that said, I don't think they're going to let us get away with an easier test. If anything, they're going to make this first Digital SAT extra challenging to make everyone think the SAT is really serious about this new test, so I expect a challenging exam. Prediction number two is that across the board, students are going to feel underprepared for this exam. Even if you have been preparing for this exam, it's very challenging to prepare for a test when there's so little material out there to prepare with. My reason for prediction number two is that the College Board tests that they gave out are not, in my opinion, a great indication of what the real Digital SAT is going to be like, and I will definitely explain this. So basically, if you read between the lines, if you buy the College Board book and look on page 317 of the Digital SAT guide, you will notice that they're actually saying on this page in the blue book that tests 1 and 3 actually only include the easy module tests, and tests 2 and 4 include the hard module tests. So students that are using the College Board materials to prepare for the exam, if say you did want to do well in that hard module, you only have 2 hard modules out of this entire exam book with hundreds and hundreds of pages. You're only practicing that twice. So I think students are going to feel underprepared for the exam, even if they are using the College Board materials. Also, the test prep books have not really caught up to the new Digital SAT. Yes, there are many books out there. Some are good, some are not. But if you look on Amazon, overall, the reviews on the new Digital SAT books are quite poor, and that makes it hard for students to prepare. If you are looking for more preparation and more practice with the Digital SAT, you can definitely check out the link below. I'll put a link to our digital testing app that has 10 tests fully adaptive for the Digital SAT. They give you your score and a full breakdown, so check that out later. Additionally, a lot of students are not going to have strategies for the Digital SAT, and that's going to make this test a little bit hard. For the past SAT, the strategies have been developed over years and years, and there's tons of strategies out there. If you went on YouTube, you went on Reddit, if you just looked online, you could find tons of pages and pages of strategies, study plans, how to go about the test. For the new digital test that just hasn't been created yet, luckily I have an answer for you guys. If you check out our book on Amazon, it has amazing reviews, has strategy for every single type of question on the test, so definitely check that out. There are also another bunch of books that I also feel are pretty good. Check out Amazon, look at the ratings. For any book that has below a 4-star rating, I would highly recommend you stay away from that book. That probably means that the test questions are not accurate, it's not updated for the new digital test, and of course you don't want to use any books that are not related to the new digital SAT. I'll definitely put a link below to some of my other favorite books on Amazon so you guys can check those out as well. Prediction number 3, guys, the math scale will be bad on this test. I have taken the test on the Blue Book app, and what I found is on the English part, you can definitely get away with getting a few wrong to still get an upper 700 level score, but on the math part, if you get 2 or 3 wrong, your score is going to drop down very quickly. So that's why I think the scaling on the math section is going to be poor, and the reason for that is there's only 44 questions. So with only 44 questions, 3 or 4 wrong is going to be about 10%, a little less than 10% wrong. That's not a good mix. So if you make a few careless errors, your score is going to drop very quickly, so you need to be extremely careful. Additionally, that issue that I mentioned earlier with the Digital SAT practice test from the College Board really plays into this. You only have 2 hard Module 2 maths to practice from. That's not a lot of information. I reviewed those 2 modules and I found several questions that were extremely challenging, way more challenging than the past SAT. So students that are using past SAT math questions to prepare for the digital SAT will definitely have an issue because there are a few questions that are totally new and totally different. I'm going to give you guys one example on test 4 Module 2, question 26. This is the type of question that I'm talking about that's extremely challenging. I'll put a picture of it on the screen for you guys right now. I suggest you check this question out. This is the kind of question I expect on the new March digital SAT. Why do I expect that? I think they're going to add 2 or 3 really challenging questions to separate the students with the high 700 scores, students with the low 700 scores. So if you do want to do really well, you do need to find a way to practice these questions, and that's why practice tests and practice test apps are super important. Prediction number 4, vocabulary is going to be an issue for many students on the digital SAT in March. Vocabulary is back, guys. I don't suggest that students start studying word lists, but you do need to try to improve your vocabulary and, more importantly, improve your strategy on the word and context questions, because those are such an important part of the English section. Also, throughout the test, they've really been throwing in tons of complicated vocabulary words. Those were always present on the SAT, but I think there's just an overall increased reliance on vocabulary. I don't think people have really noticed this yet. You know, like news magazines and education articles haven't really pointed this out yet. This was a big pain point on old SAT tests. Like, oh, the test is too based on vocabulary. That's unfair. I don't know how people haven't realized this about the new digital test yet, but I think after the March test is given and more feedback comes from students, people will realize how important vocabulary is, and I think that's going to be a big pain point for students. So you do want to make sure you really practice those vocab and context questions and overall try to improve your vocabulary if you are preparing for the test months in advance or in the future. Prediction number 5, guys, I think there will be some technical issues. Now, I'm hoping that there are no technical issues with the new digital test. I talked to hundreds of school administrators and thousands of students, and I haven't heard many horror stories about the administration of the digital PSAT, so my hope is that it mostly goes well. That said, there probably will be someone out there that's watching this video or someone in the world whose test gets messed up because their computer dies, they don't bring their charge plug, some other crazy thing happens. Obviously, we hope you avoid that, so the main thing is go in prepared, make sure your device works, make sure it's charged, make sure that you test the Blue Book app beforehand. So do all those things to avoid that. But there's going to be some issue, and I'm sure if there is a somewhat major issue, a huge deal will be made of it. Knock on wood, guys. I really hope it doesn't happen to anyone watching this video. Genuinely, that would be horrible. But at the same time, it's probably going to happen to somebody. So hopefully we can do all the things to prepare so it's not us. Prediction number 6, students that know how to use the Desmos calculator will perform better than students that don't. The Desmos calculator is extremely powerful, and on many of these digital SAT math questions, you can simply answer the question so quickly with Desmos and so easily. You still can do that with a regular school calculator, graphing calculator, of course, but I feel like the Desmos calculator has an ease of use that puts it one step above the other calculator. So I think students that are trained with that calculator, that know how to use it, and God forbid if their calculator does die, that they have that backup plan of Desmos, they know what to do with it, will do better on the test. So I highly recommend that all of you guys work with it, learn how to use it, and use it to your advantage. All right, guys, I promise you some bonus tips at the end of this video. Now, when this video comes out, you're going to have about 5 or 6 weeks until the digital SAT. So I'm going to give you that 1-month study plan, those last minute tips so you can do well. Number 1, you have to find the right materials. Obviously, the Blue Book College Board tests are great, but like I said earlier, there is that major issue on page 317 of the book that really makes those materials not as useful for the student trying to score highly. So I highly recommend you find a way to do more questions, whether that be buy a book, buy a platform. Unfortunately, that's a cost, but at the same time, you need more questions to do. I flew through the first 4 digital SAT practice exams with students in weeks, and now we have to move on to use other materials. So number 1 is finding the right materials. Number 2, I want you guys to set yourself a goal and make a plan. So if you have a month left to study and you want to get that 1400, that 1500, you need to make a step-by-step plan, day by day, week by week, what tests you're doing, what studying you're doing, when you're doing it, how you're timing yourself, what platform you're using. This is hugely important because you need to ramp yourself up for the March SAT. I would recommend studying at least 2 days a week for an hour. If you can do more than that, that would be incredible. If you can fit a practice test in every weekend between now and the test, you're going to improve your score, so I highly recommend you do that. Number 3 goes hand in hand with that. In order to prepare for the March test, you're going to have to carve out time. I like having students find specific SAT study time in their schedule. So if you can say Tuesdays and Thursdays from 4 to 6, I'm going to study for the SAT, that is going to set you up for success. If you do it like whenever you can, that's also great. At the same time, that's not as consistent, that's not as repeatable, and that will yield probably worse results than a student that has a set schedule. That's why SAT classes have set schedules. That's why tutors and companies produce study plans and outlines of when you should do what. That's because it helps. So I want you guys, if you're doing it on your own, create that for yourself and execute. All right, my final tip is if you are preparing for the digital SAT, you do not want to go into this mostly blind and only using the minimal materials that are available. There are plenty of courses out there, apps, question banks that can help you. What I'm going to do for you guys is give you a discount code for our digital SAT strategy course, which is releasing soon. That will help you guys prepare in a short amount of time for the digital SAT. It's a 10 to 12 hour test prep course taught by myself, Nick the Tutor, exactly for you guys to prepare for the test. So definitely check that out. And of course, there are tons of other things out available. You can do a class, you can get a tutor. Obviously, these things come with a cost, so I wouldn't expect everyone to be able to do that. That's why studying on your own is also important. But I want you guys to know that we're here to support you. We know you can do well in the first digital SAT. If you have any questions, make sure to throw those in the comments below. I'm helping every single one of you prepare for this test. So once again, best of luck to you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.